Well, first of all, thanks for coming. We really appreciate you participating in this roundtable session. And we wanted to give everyone just a feel for where you're at in your cloud journey and what you've experienced as you've gone through that. So I thought we could start by, Rich, for you, just opening with a little bit about your role at Hub International and how far along you are in your cloud journey and what were some of the drivers that kind of nudged you that direction.
Sure. So I'm CIO at Hub International. Hub's a $2 billion insurance brokerage located here in Chicago. It's grown pretty fast. The company started in 1998, and that's relevant to our cloud journey. Really, two answers to that question. We decided to move everything to the cloud back in October. And given our application portfolio, we really can do that. And we may get into that a little bit later. But the journey of what has been accomplished over the years really started a long time ago. So we have several apps that are running SaaS in the cloud. Some of them are pure cloud, like Workday, and then we have an Oracle app they say is cloud, but they take it down for maintenance every month, so I'm kind of questioning that. And then our team, well before I got there, did a lot of work to virtualize our environment. And that's, as everyone knows, that's a key step in being able to allow you to migrate to cloud. So we're about 98% virtualized. And we're working with Ahead right now. We're finishing up our design. And we plan to be totally in the cloud by mid-next year. And Seth Morrell's in the audience, and I committed this in front of a lot of people, so we need to do that.
All right, so Seth, you're on the hook. So similarly, Trey, obviously Allstate, a very different organization than Hub, different scale. What is your role within the organization, and how are you proceeding along your cloud journey?
Sure. I'm the senior manager in cloud engineering now, which is a new group that's been formed within the organization. So in technology, there was a bunch of officers that drew straws, and somebody got the short straw and owns cloud for all of Allstate. So a new group has been formed underneath that.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm part of a group of basically every officer ponied up a resource or two and slammed everybody together. And our goal is to build out what we're advertising as a frictionless consumption model for public cloud for Allstate and all of the earth-shattering changes that come along with that.
Great. So as the two of you look at cloud, how were you approaching it really as a replacement of current capabilities that you had on premises, or were you approaching it as a way to create new capabilities that were not existing in your environment? Trey?
I think it's a little bit of both. A common question, along with that is, what's the business case, what's the driver, what are you doing? And it's different for each area. Our test group has a different reason to do it. Our analytics group have a different reason to do it. So it's a little bit of both of those. Mostly right now, what we're currently doing is net new.
Okay.
So a lot of new build applications. We've got a couple companies internally that we're spinning up. One we just officially kind of launched last year called Arity. It's a connected consumer. And they're 100% cloud first. And so they're building out all in the cloud. So we're almost to the point where we can say cloud first for anything net new, but there's still a decent amount of internal stuff that we're not ready for the cloud first on everything yet.
Did you feel that Arity could have been built on premises, or would have that been too many challenges and barriers?
I think it would have been some severe challenges and delays in their delivery dates. They ultimately wanted all of the technology out of the way, and they wanted to get to the point of building the software and the business capabilities. And with everything an API call away in the cloud, they're achieving that as quickly as they can.
Okay, great. And Rich, for you, again, replacing current capabilities or creating new value that wasn't potential or possible?
I agree with Trey. I mean, it's yes. There's really three reasons that we're doing it. The first one is really focus for the organization, and that's, you can't build a business case on focus, but we're busy, spending a lot of time with our internal staff, keeping the lights on for essentially a utility. So we want to move everything to the cloud and leverage providers that do that very, very well, right? So think about Amazon. We talked about the utility earlier. I want to get out of building the wheel business, right? So get providers that do that for a living. They're adding servers in minutes or seconds. We do it twice a year, so they can do that very well. Then we can focus on delivering new capability for Hub. So just today, AIG announced that they introduced an insurance product using blockchain. And insurance is ripe for change. I know you guys have seen a lot of that at Allstate. And so we want to be focused on that and then leverage the utility. So that's kind of replacement focus, but a replacement of what we do. But then I think there are things that, I know there are things that cloud brings as well, which is speed. So we do about 50 M&As a year. That's how we've grown so quickly. And the ability to bring those M&As in will be accelerated probably by 75% by moving to the cloud. The other thing is agility, right? When I talk about adding those new capabilities, the ability to spin up environments and try things, and if they work out, build the enterprise whistles around it, and then roll out, or fail. So we talked earlier about failure, and you have to fail if you're going to actually move quickly. So those are 3 reasons that we moved.
Fantastic.
Are moving.
Are moving.
Are moving.
Seth.
Yeah. I think we're already done. Let's go.
Okay, very good. So Adam, Jacob talked a little bit about some of the theoretical objections that occur as you start to look at moving to cloud. Can you describe some of the organizational resistance or objections that you've experienced as you've taken your company or groups forward with this?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking before the break with someone about, just there's this general fear. I mean, in traditional IT, and obviously I'm dressed in traditional IT garb, I apologize for that. Traditional IT, we grew up with avoiding risk and making sure systems ran and so forth. So there's that fear that's built in. If I'm going to change and move, and I don't really know this area. And the other thing, if I'm quite honest about it, I think there's fear about, well, what do I do down the road with my career? And I used to argue this, my previous company, and I've done this at Hub. I go, your job probably doesn't look the same way as it did 5 years ago, as it's changed dramatically, and I think that will be the case. There will always be a need for engineers and technical folks that want to learn new things and innovate.
Great.
Yeah, I think the objections are never-ending. I think a source of them is lack of understanding in education. So we are looking to build out an education curriculum internally right now to relate to each individual officer and business area of what cloud means to them and how it actually does help them, right? Because there's no single business case. We're not doing it to save money. We're not doing it for just agility. We're not doing it for just elasticity. We're not doing it for availability. We're doing it for several of those things, but different things relate to different officers. So the theoretical objections right now are all that. The other thing we're doing is we're changing everything, the way we deploy infrastructure to infrastructure as code and CI/CD pipelines and the whole shift left mentality of the closer you are to the software development or the creation of the entities, that's where you do your security, that's where you do your monitoring, your alerting, your testing, and all those sort of things. And that mentality, there are too many people who struggle to get into that, and we're trying to figure out how to bring those people to shift left. Right now, they're thinking, hey, when this is deployed, I need to put my perimeters around it. I need to put my security boxes and firewalls and all this sort of stuff. And in the beginning, it was like, where do I plug my firewall in? And it's like, you don't. There is no firewall. So that's a huge education challenge that we have internally right now.
And how much of that education is focused on IT versus the outer lines of business or people that interface with IT?
It's all sides. It's all sides. Cloud is used, abused, overused, the most ambiguous, term that's out there, right? And we always try and find, ways to relate to something that makes sense to an individual business unit or business area. And I think the closer you can strike home with the individual and the area and their application portfolio, the better success you're going to have in convincing them and selling it.
Similarly, Rich, how much are you communicating the concept of cloud out to your business stakeholders?
Yeah, we had to go present that to our executive team, that we were going to make this big move. And then we've communicated out to the broader audience. Now, what that means to them, there's a number of things. And one of the things, quite frankly, is running our own data center. We have a staff that does a great job, but we are not as mature an IT organization. So from a stability perspective, I mean, it's decent, it's not bad, but actually we're going to build things into our cloud solutions such that we can have better stability and availability. So that, if I think about our organization as essentially sales offices for insurance, they think about that. They don't think about the cloud itself. Now, as it relates to application development and Agile and DevOps, we have made a shift there, and they love that. They hate reading requirements documents. They'd rather see it, and they get to see progress along the way. And some of that is, you just make better progress along the way, I think, and you definitely get to a better end, but some of it's psychological, right? They get to see the product in motion. So they're very excited about it.
Great. So as part of that psychological evolution, can you describe a quick win or an early success that you had that you were able to advertise back to the business or show that this thing actually had legs?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think you all work for companies, and there are certain folks that love the shiny object. So I'm going to tell you something really, really simple. So so this is going to sound ridiculous, but we have to remember this because some of this is about marketing. So we moved to Office 365. We were running on-prem, and now with my Skype client, I can just hit a button and I'm connected to the meeting via the phone call. Whereas, before I had to dial in or something. I mean, that is ridiculously minor, but you talk to people and it's like, this is great. I'm in my car and I shouldn't be looking at my phone, but now I just have to hit the button and I'm on the call, as opposed to I had to dial it and I've avoided 3 accidents over time.
Great. I know someone who can get you some insurance.
Yeah.
Trey, a quick win for you?
Hopefully it's not our insurance.
Yeah. It's not a profitable client at all.
So one of our quick wins is actually, so we have the startup I mentioned earlier, Arity, and it's all about connected consumer, connected everything. And we have a connected car device that we can ship out to customers called DriveWise is the product name. So it's plugs in your EDP2 port, and essentially what it does originally was it would make a phone call at the end of your trip. So you park your car, it sits 5 minutes, it calls in, sends some summary data. There's a shift to that to have it dial in as soon as a car starts and constantly be connected to AT&T's cell network and send data the entire time, and then summary data at the end. So we were sitting down and looking at the millions of these devices that are out there and the millions of connections that would come across. And with that one, when Arity was going 100% cloud, they were like, this is perfect because I can have unlimited resources available in the cloud. And when you're talking about terminating 11 million IP addresses that all overlap our current IP space, we were able to build that out in an isolated cloud environment very quickly, very easily, with simple clicks. And we tried to price that out internally with firewalls and endpoint connections, the number of servers for all the gateways, et cetera. It was in the several $million range. And they were able to spin that up in cloud, consuming a fraction of that as they spin up. Because if you think of a lot of cars in the traffic at 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, there's not too many people out. Maybe you're making phone calls on the road, possibly. But so it was great that we were able to take that, that even though we still don't have a scale problem, I'll say that as well. But we were able to take that advantage, and that's one of those wins we were able to advertise.
So you're telling me that Allstate is the reason that my AT&T unlimited plan went away?
Possibly. No, that's Tesla. That's what I heard.
That sounded so much more impressive than the button to get into the meeting, Skype meeting.
Does it know when he's dialing on his phone and tell people? All right. So looking back, now that you're several years into this, I'm going to leave that one alone. Is there anything that you would have done differently, either in sequencing or prioritization, knowing what you know now?
Oh, yeah. So there are a bunch of people from Kohl's. I would have made them move faster going to cloud. So I learned from that, and now I'm pushing hard at Hub. But I think the other thing I would say is, there is fear out there. That's legitimate, right? So you have to work with the staff. And, it has to be tops down, but you got to win the hearts and minds of the staff as well. And, even, through my experience through the years at a bunch of different companies, you still underestimate that. And, we've done more of that work at Hub, but, there's still more to do.
Okay.
I think the biggest learning is the slide that was up earlier around the 8-week project and having everybody there, lawyers, compliance, security, some more security people. You have to have them at the table, engaged and committed up front, or you won't get very far. So we've actually had to reboot some of our cloud efforts because we kind of said, hey, we're going to go to cloud, go do some research and come back to us and see what you need. And we didn't really sit down at the table with them in a pairing way. And we didn't get very far. So we've had to kind of do a little reset and bring all those people to the table with us. They're working with us. We're doing a lot of paired engineering and paired programming. Infrastructure guys who typically, you go and you build something, this whole pairing thing is new to them. So it's great to see an infrastructure person pairing with a security person building out the new cloud thing. So I would say bring all of those people to the table in the very beginning, or you will have some trouble later on.
I would add that there are thousands of reasons to not do it, right? You can come up with all these things, and a lot of it's related to fear. One of the things that we try to instill is, we are going to do it. We need to overcome these things, and how are we, we charge the staff with doing that. So I think that that's important. Otherwise, you'd be at this for years.
We had quite a bit of time this morning that we spent on team structure and culture. Can you talk a little bit about how the culture and team structure has changed at Allstate to support the new cloud initiatives?
Still changing right now. I mentioned earlier, right, all of the officers kind of pointed up resources and said, hey, this is my guy or my gals for this effort, which was great, because then we had a fully focused effort where we were able to get a lot done in a short amount of time and make decisions. And it's challenging because the person who's there representing a specific area has to make a decision based upon their entire area, or go back and phone a friend, phone home, whatever the case is, to come back to the group. So that was a huge change. And the challenge that we're in right now is everybody's like, I want to be on cloud engineering. Why can't I be on cloud engineering? And we have people doing TDY assignments. We have people getting engaged as much as we can across the organization. We don't know what the end state looks like tomorrow or the next day. We know we are hiring right now. So anybody want to work in the Chicago Mart and do cloud work, come find me. But we are trying to grow the teams as quickly as we can, and find internal resources, external resources, and figure out what this new team structure looks like. It's different than it is today. But there are some things that are the same. Our SOC is staying the same. Our NOC is going to be similar, right? But the whole engineering, the front-end development of things, and even the intake processes are going to change. But we don't have all those answers right now.
We've done several things. We brought in a new leadership team. So, a lot of that had to do with culture. Had great, there were some great people there before, but, where we wanted to head and getting people on board, quite frankly, we didn't have time to convince, the leaders as well. So that this can be very time consuming. So we went out and recruited some leaders that are innovative, want to innovate, love the idea of moving to the cloud. So that was one thing. We also took the infrastructure group, and we're nowhere near the size of Allstate. We had about 100 people in IT, and within the infrastructure group, we separated run and project work. And that allowed us to focus because, if you've been in different IT shops, there's different levels of maturity. And people generally are doing a good job, and they're improving. It's about improving over time. But we were busy, 50 M&As a year, you've grown to $2 billion over 20 years, pretty short time frame. People were just busy, just running around, keeping their fingers in the dike. So we separated the group out so that we got people doing break fix, and then people that are working on the cloud implementations and new capabilities. The other responsibility of the people on the run side is, how do we automate things? How do we drive down so we talked about continuous improvement. How do we drive down our issues? How do we increase stability? How do we automate as much as possible? And there will never be an end to that. And that's a really marketable skill. And we had to coach the team on that.
Sure.
To get them on board. So
cloud is a journey. It's not an endpoint. It's not a destination. As you continue on your journey, where do you see as the next big challenges that you're trying to tackle at Hub?
Our focus is going to shift dramatically from, there is a shift to cloud, and there isn't an endpoint, I agree with you, but there is a milestone for us where, we're leveraging our partners to deliver the day-to-day service, and we're working on things that can disrupt the industry, right? So I talked about blockchain earlier. There's artificial intelligence. When you think about underwriting, can you teach Watson to underwrite as opposed to having an actuary do it? So those are the things that we want to be working on at Hub. There are simpler things. I said it earlier about Skype, a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but given mobility to our producers, right? That's what we call our salespeople, so that they have access to all the information. That's going to be enabled by cloud. So, yeah, I don't know that, I'm not smart enough. I know the insurance industry has changed, but it's going to change dramatically in the next year, 10 years. Not exactly sure what that is going to be, but we want to be on the forefront of it.
I think it's a very similar answer. I think the challenges are just going to keep coming up, right? And what the next one is too unknown at this time. I think the insurance industry is in a massive evolution and change, as you said, and we are trying to create new businesses within the organization. We're trying to do investments in startups and angel investors and those sort of things. So there's a huge business challenge that is more at the forefront than I'll call it our technology challenges at this point.
Great. So as our time draws to a close, is there one parting thought you'd like to leave our audience with, something they should consider you'd like them to take away from today?
Move faster. I mean, seriously.
Seth?
No, I mean, in general, when you think about that, I mean, that was a great example of technology. We don't want to be, I mean, let's face it, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they can run data centers. They can run virtualization. I mean, I would move quickly and figure out how to get past the obstacles as opposed to letting that hold you back. That's what I would leave.
I think education is the biggest thing that you can do, and you have to relate to the folks. And then I think an interesting telltale sign was earlier when it was asked, who's a developer in the room, and like 4 people raised their hands. And the challenge with that is you need infrastructure people to be developers to be successful with cloud, because if you approach it with a point-and-click mentality, you will fail. Down
Well, that's
the road
uplifting.
Move faster and don't fail.
Well, but the good news is I think a lot of organizations do have developers. They're just those guys over there who could blame infrastructure on everything. And you've got to recruit them and bring them over. And I think you'll be successful and bring everybody to the table. We've had a much better movement and success when we brought security to the table, compliance, legal, and those folks, and broke it down, educating them, and then moved forward. And we're moving at a very high rate of speed right now.
Excellent. Now, Rich, I believe you had a question for me.
Yeah, I mean, who writes Kaplan's material? Actually, some of that stuff was pretty funny. I mean, he can't be coming up with that himself, right?
He won't let us write his material.
That Maslow hierarchy needs, I thought that was pretty good.
Those are all his own jokes. We just help him with the slides.
I'm not buying it.
All right. Well, thank you both very much for participating in this panel. And if anyone else wants to ask an additional question of Rich or Trey, they will be roaming the hallways, and at least in the case of Trey, accepting resumes as well.
Yes.
So thank you again for all of your time and for participating, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.